I recently conducted a round of mock interviews and I gave every single person the same 4 pieces of feedback. So today I am bringing these insider tips to you. These tips will help you ace your next interview, stand out, and land your dream job. Hi there, I'm Jamie, and I'm here to transform how you work. I'm the founder of Career Brilliance, where we help people boost their business savvy and cross more things off their to-do list so they can fast-track their path to professional leadership and enjoy their workday more. If that sounds good to you, be sure to like this video and hit subscribe. So I've got my coffee and I'm ready to go. Let's jump in. So the first thing to know is that every interviewer is looking for the answers to 2 questions. 1, can this person do the work for the role that I am hiring? And 2, do I want to work with this person? Is this person going to mesh well on the team when we go out for team lunch? Is that going to go smoothly? Do I want to go grab a cup of coffee with this person? That kind of thing. So your goal as you go throughout this interview is to weave in the answers to both of those questions as often and as organically as you can. Here's what that looks like. So for the can you do the work question, you want to be intentional about highlighting specific projects, deliverables, and accomplishments that really showcase your expertise. You want to demonstrate that you have the skills and the experience that you need to do this job well. This is a great opportunity to bring up any sort of industry-specific technologies or tools that you have demonstrated expertise in. So if you are really familiar with Photoshop or you know how to write in C#, you want to make that known within the context of your answers. This also applies to the softer skills side of things as well. You want to look for opportunities to walk the interviewer through your unique problem-solving process. So this can look like providing very specific examples of the actual work that you did. What was the process? What was the problem that needed to be solved? And what steps did you take to solve that problem? So instead of saying, I was working on a problem and it was really ambiguous on how I needed to solve it, but I figured it out and it turned out really well, you want to walk your interviewer through that. So whatever that ambiguity was, you want to explain how you deconstructed the problem in order to find a solution. So it could be something like, this was a hard problem to solve because of the ambiguity of what the intended target market actually needed. So I did a series of interviews with focus groups and I looked elsewhere in the market for other things that were similar, problems that had been solved by other people, and specifically the documents that people used to help them solve a problem that was similar. And so I modeled the first version of my solution after that established standard, while also taking into consideration what I heard during my focus groups. Then together with the focus groups, we iterated through the different versions until we landed on a final solution that accounted for 95% of the needs. For the other question of do I want to work with you? You'll want to find opportunities to share what makes you unique beyond your resume. What differentiates you from everyone else who has the same degree as you and maybe even similar experience? You'll want to talk about your passions and your interests and anything else that would give insight to who you are as a person. This is really your opportunity to demonstrate how well you would mesh into a team or a company culture. So you can bring up instances like, outside of work, I'm passionate about community service and I volunteer at a food bank, which has taught me a lot about teamwork and adaptability. When you are answering questions and providing examples during your conversation with your interviewer, not every single example has to come strictly from your perfectly relevant work experience. You can pull from hobbies or volunteer activities as long as you're able to still articulate how that connects back to what the interviewer is asking about. Another example of this from the mock interviews that I just did that I was really impressed with is that someone was talking to me about a project that they did, and one of the reasons why they really liked it is they were able to learn about the importance of data integrity and how this project then helped them develop an appreciation for clean data and how having bad data can cause a lot of issues for businesses. That's not something that anyone else brought up in any of my other conversations. And so it stood out because it was interesting and it was something that helped that person be differentiated from everyone else who, again, had a similar skill set and set of experiences. So remember that by answering both of these questions, you are showing that you can both do the job and that you would be a really valuable addition to the team. Okay, piece of feedback number 2 is all about the inevitable question of a mistake or a failure. These are classics in a behavioral interview. Tell me about a time when you made a mistake. Tell me about a time when you failed. And they can be really uncomfortable, but you can, 1, absolutely prepare for these, and 2, there's a really solid structure that you can follow to make these less painful and awkward and terrible. So first, you do want to have an actual example. You want to answer the question honestly. You don't want it to be like, I'm just too much of a perfectionist. Like, don't give a non-answer. Don't dodge it. Come up with a legitimate example. You have them. I know you do. You don't want it to be like the worst mistake or sin of your life, but, come up with something that is truly something did not go well. You probably had a bad day because of it, and talk about that. You want to explain briefly what happened. You don't need to give all of the details, but here is the most important part. Once you're done, once you've explained whatever the mistake or the failure was, the most important part is that you then say, and if I were to do this again, if I were back in the same situation, here's what I would do differently. So an example of this would be, in my previous role, I underestimated the time that I needed for a crucial project, which led us to miss a deadline. If I were to do it again, I would build in more buffer time for unexpected challenges, and I would communicate potential risks to stakeholders earlier in the process. This experience really taught me the importance of proactive communication and realistic timeline planning. So by having this approach to this question, you're showing that you're honest and you're self-aware, and most importantly, that you know to learn from your mistakes. Mistakes, failures, they are inevitable. But learning from those and taking away something valuable from that experience so that you can apply it moving forward, that is really important to communicate to your interviewer. Okay, the third piece of feedback is a tricky one, and that is about the art and science of providing context, especially in behavioral interviews where the vast majority of the conversation is going to be talking about specific experiences, scenarios, projects that you worked on, assignments. There is an element of storytelling there. And one of the trickiest parts is knowing how much context to give in your answers. You want to give enough background so that your story makes sense and that the impact, the contribution, whatever it is that you did is significant and meaningful, but you don't want to give so much context that the interviewer loses interest or gets overwhelmed or doesn't know what the most important parts are to pay attention to. So here's a really simple way to think about this process. First, you want to start with a brief setup that gives necessary background. So if you're familiar with the STAR approach, STAR, this is your S and T. So you want to outline what the situation was and what the task was. You're setting the scene. Importantly, this part of your answer should really only be 2 to 3 sentences. It's hard to know when you're talking how much 2 to 3 sentences are. So what I would encourage you to do is ahead of time, maybe pick out a couple of examples that you're pretty sure you're going to bring up and actually write them down, how you would, explain them, and see how long they are. If it's pushing that 2 to 3 sentences mark, you might be giving too much context. If you are jumping straight into the here's what I did, then you might be giving too little context. So remember, your interviewer doesn't need all of the details. They just need enough to understand the implication and the impacts later on. So once we've set the scene, we've got our S&RT established. Now we want to focus on the actions that you took and the decisions that you made. This is the A of our star, action. And it's really all about what did you do? Going back to our 2 questions that are on the mind of every interviewer, I want to know what specific skill you brought to the table, whether that was problem solving, leadership, effective use of a specific tool. I want to know the details of the actions that you took and the decisions that you made. And then finally, this is the most important, you want to emphasize the impact or results of your actions. So following along with our star, this is your R, which is for results. And the key here is really to keep the so what front and center. Why does what you're saying matter? What was the significance? What was the impact? What was the value that the actions that you took or the decisions that you made? What positive benefit did that make to your situation and your task, the context that you have set up for us? So let's say I am interviewing you and I ask you one of my favorite questions to ask, which is, can you tell me about a project or an assignment that you have done that you really enjoyed and why? So you could say something like, I worked on improving our customer service process by implementing a new ticket system. Okay, so I have my situation, I have my task, I have my actions. I don't really know what the benefit was to the business. I don't really know what the new ticketing system did for anyone or why it was even really needed. On the other hand, you don't want to go too deep in the details. So you wouldn't want it to be like, okay, so last year, I think it was maybe February or March, our CSAT, our customer satisfaction KPI, key performance indicator, dropped from, I think it was a 4.5 to a 4, and then I think it dropped again to like a 3.2. And so then I did a lot of research and I looked into 3 different ticketing systems, and some of those were cloud-based and some of them were local, and they had different pricing models. And I knew that once we picked one, we would then have to do training for our employees. And so that factored in and was a consideration. So I'm going to stop there. So you can tell that I am giving you just so much information about what was going on. And if you're on the receiving end of that, you're kind of like, okay, like I understand everything that you said. Like none of it was necessarily confusing. It's just so much information that it's hard for me to know what is the most important part here. And also, what did you do and how did that actually benefit? So here's how I would recommend someone in this scenario answer this question. I noticed that our customer satisfaction scores were dropping. So I initiated a project to overhaul our customer service process. By implementing a new ticketing system and providing additional training to our team, we were able to reduce response times by 40% and increase our customer satisfaction scores from a 3.2 to a 4.7 out of 5 in just 3 months. So this approach, this answer gives enough context that we know what's going on. We know what the catalyst was for the actions that you took. The customer service scores are dropping, and so you initiated a project to do something about that. Then we focus on the specific actions. I implemented a new ticketing system and provided additional training to the team. And then the majority of what we're talking about is the so what. What did this actually get us? And that is we were able to reduce response times and also increase customer satisfaction. So the impact of your actions is really, really obvious. And I have enough context to understand you set out to solve a problem and you did in fact solve it. So following that structure and having that framework in mind is really the science part of this tip. The art part comes in of being self-aware. Are you someone who does tend to give a little bit too much detail? Someone who wants to set all of the context? Someone who tends to be a little bit more talkative and gives more than is really necessary? If that's you, you might want to keep in the back of your mind when you're going through an interview that you need to pull it back just a little bit. On the other side, there are those of us, and I can raise my hand that this was me, who for a while, when I was asked a question, I just gave the exact answer to the question that was asked and then stopped talking. And so for me, and if you are one of these people, it is important to remember that you need to give a little bit more. Your interviewer doesn't know everything that you know, and they're not going to be able to ask you every question to get all of the goodness pulled out of you. You have to be able and willing to provide some of that is above and beyond exactly what they've asked. If you get into a little bit more of those shorter answers, it can start to feel a little bit more of a transactional conversation rather than a true natural flowing discussion, which you really want your interview to feel like you're just having a conversation with another person. And yes, they're asking you questions, but they ask you a question, you provide an answer. Maybe they ask a follow-up question based on what you said, or maybe they share some of their own experience, or maybe, they open it up and you get a chance to ask them like, oh, is your company using this tool? So it ends up flowing a little bit better, which is really what you want. This takes a little bit of trial and error, which is really where kind of the art piece of this comes in. But again, every single person that I talked to needed a little bit of refinement on the right amount of context to provide. And the final tip is all about mastering the "tell me about yourself" question. This is often the first question in every interview where the interviewer, maybe they start with an introduction of themselves and then they say, "And how about you? Can you tell me a little bit about you?" This introduction is really your chance to set the tone of the interview while also very practically laying out exactly who you are, what you're interested in, and providing some little interesting personal tidbits that start to answer the second question about if this person wants to work with you. So I have developed my CPF framework and I have a whole video dedicated to it, but we could not talk about interview tips without talking about it here as well. So in your opening, in your intro, you want to follow my CPF framework, which is current, past, and future. So the C, current. Where are you right now professionally? So this could be something like, I'm currently a marketing manager for XYZ company where I lead a team of 5 and I oversee our digital marketing strategies. If you are a student, this is the time to say, I am a finance major. I will graduate in May of 2026 and I am looking for internships this summer. So then we move to the past. And you want to share relevant experiences that led you to where you are. You can go as far back as where you grew up, where are you from. You can also use this as an opportunity to bring in some of your maybe hobbies or volunteer experiences, things that will differentiate you from the other people who have similar experiences. So this could be something like, I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and I got my degree in marketing from XYZ University. I started as a marketing coordinator where I really honed my skills in SEO and content marketing. On the weekends, I really enjoy volunteering at my local animal shelter. And in my free time, I also really enjoy photography and taking pictures outside and of people that I love. And then you want to take it to the future. You want to wrap up with what excites you about this opportunity, what you're looking forward to, bring it back to why we're here, and end on a really positive note. And really clarify what it is that you are looking for. So this could be something like, I'm excited about this senior marketing director position because it aligns really well with my goal to lead larger teams and to implement data-driven marketing strategies on a broader scale. So a quick kind of student-focused example would sound something like this. So I'm currently a senior majoring in computer science at ABC University, and I'll be graduating in May of 2026. Right now I'm focusing on machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I'm working on my capstone project to develop an AI-powered chatbot for mental health support. Last summer, I interned at tech solutions company where I built a predictive analytics tool that helped their marketing team improve campaign targeting by 25%. I've also taken on leadership roles in my university's coding club where I organized hackathons and mentored underclassmen. I'm excited about this software engineering role because it's an opportunity to deepen my expertise in AI development while contributing to innovative projects that make a real-world impact. So this structure ensures that your answer is concise, relevant, and it's also optimistic and forward-looking. It also naturally addresses both of the questions that we discussed earlier. It shows that you can do the work. It starts to demonstrate your skills and your experiences, and it also gives a glimpse of who you are as a person and as an interviewer. Those are some of my favorite nuggets to ask about and to connect on. This is one interview question that you can almost guarantee will be asked in some way, shape, or form. So it's important to get comfortable with how you want to answer this. Be strategic in planning it out and then practice it a few times until it feels really natural. Of course, as always, you'll want to adapt it for the specific role that you're interviewing for, but following this framework will really set a strong tone for the interview. All right, so if you are able to master these 4 key areas, answering the 2 essential questions, handling the mistake question, providing the right amount of context, and nailing your self-introduction, you are going to be well on your way to acing your interview. Remember that interviews are not just about showcasing your skills, they're about telling your professional story in a compelling way. So go out there, be confident, and show them why you're perfect for the role. You've got this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.